Order. The back.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Please be seated. Okay, agenda for the minutes of boards of the committees for the North Berkshire Borough Council, 28th June, commencing at 6:30. Item 1 on the agenda is the evacuation procedure, and I shall read that. There is a location plan on the exits and the assembly points situated on the doors of the room. Please familiarise yourself with it. On discovering a fire, please carry out the following: sound the alarm, attack the fire if possible and safe to do so, using appliances provided. On hearing the evacuation signal, please carry out the following: exit the building at your nearest safest exit. All visitors report assembly point G, which is over that side of the car park. Staff report to the designated assembly point on Warpath Way car park. Do not leave the assembly point for any reason until to do so by the incident controller or fire brigade officer. In this case, the incident controller will be yourself.
That's right.
Thank you. Item 2, apologies for absence.
Two apologies, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Jackson and Councillor Waffles.
Councillor Andy Wright.
Everybody content with those apologies? Thank you very much. Declarations, item 3, declarations of personal and prejudicial interest. Are there any? If there are any during the meeting and you find something, just mention it and we'll take them then. Item 4 is the move to move in accordance with standing orders that the minutes of the meeting of the council held on the 17th of May 2023 be approved as a correct record.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move the minutes, but whilst I do, I've got. We received a request from the Warwickshire Climate Change Group post May 17th, and just put there that Councillor Peter Fowler be our rep on that.
Okay, anybody else?
Yes.
Councillor Gosling.
Thank you. Please accept an amendment to the board allocations as presented on the green sheet in front of you.
This is this green sheet on. I'll vote for those now.
Yes, it's been moved.
So we've got a proposer and a seconder. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. To receive mayor's announcements, well, I haven't got many. I've been to a few things. I went to Veterans Day at Jackie's Yard, which really should become Jackie's Yard because Jackie Chambers did a really good thing there. It was a great day. Who would know if you didn't know where Ruby's Yard was that you were sat in the middle of Addiston? Unbelievable. There was quite a few veterans there, barbecue going on, music, etc. That was really, really good. And I also went to Birmingham. I went to the, having been in the TA myself, I went to the Reserve Forces Cadet Association annual general meeting. That was quite interesting. And I met a few people that I'd actually served with, so it was quite interesting there. And the one thing I'm really sad about is I'm supposed to be going to a curry at the officers' mess at Gamecote Barracks. They cancelled it about 5 days beforehand, and the deputy mayor took my place at the civic dinner. I've got two choices: the civic dinner in Solihull, have a few beers with a few soldiers in Gamecote Barracks, but they obviously backed out, so that was a shame. So that's all we've got to say for it at the moment. Item 6, to answer questions from members of the public pursuant to Standing Orders number 7. We've got call on Eleanor Parsons.
Thank you. So this month, Warwickshire County Council will decide whether to become full members of the West Midlands Combined Authority. This decision will apparently be made without consulting the district councils, despite its likely impact. It should have been openly debated across the districts, and this council should have been given the opportunity to collect and submit comments from councillors. Will this council write to Warwickshire County Council to share its frustration with the lack of consultation and to request an urgent delay to the decision-making process in order to allow time for an open debate on the implications of joining the combined authority?
Response from Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your question. My understanding is that Warwickshire County Council will consider this matter at its Cabinet meeting on the 13th of July and then at a meeting of the full council at a later date. I was not advised of this development until last week, and it's fair to say that not all the relevant information is available yet to partners such as this council, nor is it clear whether all the details have yet been confirmed. I share your disappointment that this important matter is being considered at such short notice and without any of the consultation that you would normally expect to see. I am currently not confident that Warwickshire County Council has all the information it needs to make a decision, including the views of other constituent and non-constituent councils that make up the combined authority. I am happy, therefore, to write to the County Council setting out this view and asking that a decision is not made until all the information has been provided and consulted upon.
Thank you very much. Item 7, to receive and consider the minutes and notes of the meetings of firstly Planning and Development Board. Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I beg to move that the minutes and notes of the meetings of the Planning and Development Board held on the 22nd of May and 1st of June be
And a seconder. Councillor. Sorry, David, I missed that. I was looking.
No, I put my hand up at the wrong time.
Okay, thank you. You've done that before.
I have. I'm good at it.
Seconder, sorry. Councillor Jarvis. Excuse me while I sort my papers out. You'll have to forgive me at the moment. I'm just confused here with my paper. Back to the agenda. I haven't got the paper. Oh, sorry. Councillor Gosling, still in training. Plan, so 22nd of May and June, sorry, pages 13 to 20.
You go through the minutes, Mr. Mayor.
I can't find them.
Just 13.
13, sorry, very sorry. Still training. Page 13. 14. 15. Councillor Gosling.
Thank you. It was to raise an issue which we raised in planning some time ago about the fate of solar farms that we are seeing. And while as a general principle, I do support having alternative energies and a lack of reliance on one or two sources. However, I do think, as I raised in planning, that we need an overarching policy in order to support the allocation of solar farms to make sure that we are not the victim of losing too much farmland to one specific.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wholeheartedly agree with Councillor Gosling, and I will go further. I am vehemently against any solar farms. I'm not against solar energy principle, but the desecration of our green belt and our farming land is wrong, and we should have. I totally agree. We should have a policy whereby we encourage solar energy to be on the roofs of the industrial buildings, etc., but not desecrating our green belt and our farming land.
Governor. Move then.
Councillor Farrell, is it?
Councillor Fowler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly support what Councillor Gosling has said. As I said myself at the planning, and certainly being the climate change champion as well, whilst I see a need at solar panels at the moment, again, as I said at the meeting, that for me, farmland is exactly what it is. It's farmland. And I think solar panels, if anywhere, need to be further away on the buildings. And even more so, as I did say again at the planning meeting, that we ought to be looking more at solar tiles, certainly with the houses, because that is a way forward. And I would hope that in due course, that having solar tiles will be part of the planning approval on new developments. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. Councillor Clue.
I agree with everything that's been said about our brownfields, but I'd just like to remind people, and I have done research on this, that how it affects our wildlife as well. There is evidence out there that we lose birds by the thousands because they think them ponds in the land. And also we're losing our bats because we can't hear the noise from these solars, but the bats can. So they're not migrating properly. They're abandoning where normally they are. So I'd just like to mention that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody else?
Back to Councillor Simpson. Back to Councillor Simpson to sum up on that.
Councillor Simpson.
Really weird echoing here, Mr. Mayor.
I should try wearing this. I'm melting at the moment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would genuinely encourage all those people spoken so eloquently tonight on a resolved item to turn up to the planning board when the decision is actually made and air those comments. If you really want to contribute to the debate, do it when we're having a vote, not after the event. Solar farms are contentious, and everybody knows that, but everybody uses electricity. We have significant policies within the building plan that set out the basic criteria for how we will determine these applications. Is it in the green belt? Is it on land which is the best and most versatile agricultural quality? Is it going to be visible? And how is it going to be mitigated? I can assure all members that those are issues that the planning board do significant account in trying to reach a decision. And you have to take all of the relevant factors and weigh them and come up with a decision. Greenbelt is undoubtedly the strongest policy in the plan, and it's the thing that council most weight. But we equally have policies in favour of diversification and in favour of alternatives. And the government have made it abundantly clear that the National Planning Policy Framework is keen to find alternative sources of energy to support the lack of abuse of the planet. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I understand and I agree, but it's a nuanced argument. You have to take into account all of the factors, not just the fact you don't like it. If we were to have a planning policy that said anything members didn't like didn't get planning, we'd have a vote for it. But please, honestly, let's go to the planning meeting and have a debate on these, because that's where you can have an impact. This is a resolved item. It's done. It's dusted. Fortunately, but I'm trying to be cautious in what I say, because I say things which are prejudicial. If there's one person here really doesn't want to damage the green belt, it's me. I'm not trying to say the rest of you don't, but honestly, I really do not want to do it. So we will test all of the applications, all applications, whether green belt or not, town centres or not, we will hold account to in terms of the solar plan and make plan-led decisions. Because if you ignore the plan, you just make decisions on a whim, lose on appeal, and you will leave it through planning. I know that's not what you're saying, Councillor Gosling. I'm not trying to say that you were saying that, but we have to be really closely with the plan and find planning reasons to say no to it.
Page 16.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank goodness I was at the planning board on the 22nd of May after Councillor Simpson has spoken so eloquently. I'd just like to speak about item 7, and it's to express my thanks to the officers of the planning board for the prompt and rapid action that they took in relation to the tree preservation orders at Waterham. Without doubt, location is now under significant threat from HS2's decision to start tunnel boring on the Bromford Tunnel, which goes from Waterham to Birmingham. There are also additional applications, large-scale applications for housing in Waterham. Following complaints from members of the public, the officers were straight on the case, and what we've seen is the allocation of 15 tree preservation orders. If that is not a council who are responsive and immediate, then I don't know what is. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody else on 16?
Then needs to go back to Councillor Simpson.
Councillor Simpson?
That echo again.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Riley. I absolutely agree with you. I'll pass on your comments to the planning division. Genuinely, I think there's a real threat here to the village and what it will look like in the future, and we will take appropriate and efficient action.
Thank you. Right, page 17. Page 19.
18.
18, I haven't got an 18. So sorry.
Let me take that vote on who's going to be mayor again.
No, look, can we, let's try and... Well, I would have, I put my glasses on, but I forgot them. Page 18, very sorry. Well, at least I'm keeping you smiling anyway in this. You should all come and join me in the sauna later. Page 18 then, if you're being pedantic. Page 19. This won't work.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been waving a lot, so I thought that.
Yes.
I want to raise a point on the application for London Street, Atherstone. It's a very minor. I think it's important. We discussed this at some considerable length, and it's my recollection that when we were talking about the screens which are to be used for the display in the windows of this, that we agreed that they should be restricted to the hours of daylight. They should not be used in the hours of darkness. That was my recollection from the meeting. And it doesn't appear there.
Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, sir. I'd just like to make sure we've got your name right. You have a different name.
Yeah,
I will do my best to pronounce that.
I wouldn't worry too much.
Councillor Austin, I remember that discussion. I genuinely remember that. But I can't remember what exactly was said. It was certainly, I think, in the board's mind to do that. Yes. So let me follow up and find out, because I certainly remember what you're saying. And I think that was too. We did have a subsequent meeting with the group of members that we said should talk about it. And I genuinely can't remember, but I'll find out and we'll let you know.
If I may, I can remember it because I prepared it. So, that I'm sure it will say.
David, you're not supposed
to. Sorry.
And then I'm not supposed to do this either.
No. We'll stand in the corner together.
You're like Laura and Hardy, you two at the moment. So, that's page 9, page 20. Councillor Simpson.
Mr. Mayor, I beg to move that the minutes and notes of the meeting of planning and development held on the 22nd of May and June be adopted.
And then second bit, Councillor Hayfield. All those in favour? Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Too many pages here, Steve. I'll try again now. Yeah, I'll throw it off there, so. Item 8 is the to receive and consider the minutes of the Community Environmental Board. Councillor Bell.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I would like to move that the minutes of the Community Environment Board of the 5th of June 2023 be received.
And a seconder, Councillor Singh. Thank you very much. Now we're back to finding too many pages again. Page 21. Councillor Turley, are you waiting?
No, it's my, I'm just tuning in. So.
Thank you. Page 22. Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So I'd like to move that the minutes of the Community Environment Board 5th of June 2023 be adopted.
Seconded. Councillor Singh. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. And the next item is the minutes of the Resource Board for Councillor Simmons.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I move that the minutes of the Resources Board held on the 19th of June and the recommendations of such meeting be adopted.
Seconder for that. Councillor Davey, thank you very much. Page 23. Page 24. Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to raise a point on item number 6. As someone involved in the insurance industry, I deal with the issue of damp and mould in houses regularly. I think it was today that 9 housing associations voluntarily referred themselves to the Ombudsman because they had significant issues with damp and mould in their properties. Damp and mould is an endemic problem, and it is a scourge for people that have to live in. I'm really, really pleased the council is taking proactive and positive action, showing the right way, and to be able to deal with people in council houses in a humane and ethical manner. So, well done.
Councillor Simmons.
Thank you, Mark, for those comments. Yes, so it was a good paper that was written by the Director Angela Coates, and it was very well received in both the Housing Subcommittee, chaired by Denise Councillor and the Resource Board.
Seconder for. Got a second for. Those in favour?
But that was just on that item, so we need to
Okay, sorry.
go back to Carol. Acceptance of
Back to you again.
So I move that the minutes recommendations of the Resources Board held on the 19th of June be adopted.
And a second for that then. Councillor Jarvis, all those in favour? Thank you very much, that's unanimous. And the next item is the minutes of the Executive Board. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I move that the minutes of the Executive Board held on the 20th of June of this year be received.
Is there a second for that? Thank you very much, Councillor Simpson. Item page 25A, 25B, 25C. That's right.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I now move that the minutes and recommendations of the Executive Board held on the 20th of June this year be adopted.
Second for that, Councillor Simmons. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. The next item is the minutes of the special subgroup. Councillor Clues.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the minutes and recommendations of the special sub from the 26th of June be received.
Second for that, Councillor Jens. Page 26. Councillor Gosling.
Thank you. It's just to share concern over some of the sickness levels which have been represented in the statistics, especially the mental health statistics, and the continuing issues with mortality some skeletal issues amongst our streetscape teams. And there's been a lot of work done to try and improve working conditions for that, but it's still quite concerning, the levels of absenteeism we have for those specific things.
Councillor Clues?
Thank you, Councillor Gosling. I did bring this up with a meeting with her, and she did assure me that any of our staff that is offered any kind of sickness are getting all the help that they need, that anything that's offered that they need to get them back into work. And she did assure me that, because that was one of my concerns, the reason why they was off, and was they getting help to get them back into work. Thank you.
Councillor Clues?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that the special sub minutes and recommendations of the 26th of June be adopted.
And seconder for that, Councillor Fowler. All those in favour? Thank you, that's unanimous. Then item 12, to consider the receive and consider the notice of motion under Standing Order 10. Councillor Ridley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My motion is that the council supports immediate review of the local plan once the government's advised guidelines are issued.
Councillor Wright. No. Oh, seconder for that, sorry, Councillor. Yeah.
I'd like to second this motion, as the impact on the local plan will have an enormous impact upon Dordon and Polesworth, as well as other part of the borough. I feel that before the whole character and the identity of our villages and communities are changed forever, that the current local plan must be reviewed as soon as possible. And particularly after the government's new legislation to protect our communities, it is only fair that before this council inflicts on villages and communities a complete change of lifestyles and identity, that the local plan is renewed so that it is compliant with new legislation, ideas, planning, and a level of building is still necessary.
Councillor Ridley.
Excuse me, I've written this down, so hopefully you'll bear with me. We're in a very different world to that in 2014, when the core strategy for the current local plan was adopted. We know that a review is required every 5 years, but what this motion tables is a comprehensive review of the entire local plan earlier than that 5-year mark. Looking at the current annual monitoring review for 21-22, there were already signs of a need to examine how the local plan was faring up to expectations. For instance, there was no measurable progress of housing needs for certain groups of people, such as older people, younger people, starter homes, people with disabilities, special needs housing, custom built and self-built homes for innovation, and people with a desire to tailor their home, their living style. And this is something that came out in the inspector's review. Other areas of the plan is found wanting, again mentioned by the planning inspector's examination. Economic regeneration, employment areas, rural employment, which affects North Warwickshire so much. Natural environment, examining adverse effects of development. Green infrastructure. And the big question, the strategic road improvements, and in particular, that big Roman road is the A5 running through our borough. The A5 improvement was a critical and an essential piece of the jigsaw to allow the building of a huge chunk of the 9,598 homes required in the delivery by 2033. Remember that almost 70% of the new houses to be built are along that A5 corridor. How on earth will that affect our community? Funding for the stages of A5, 1 and 2 still appears to be not in place from a specific government department, and I feel that things are very much still up in the air from the presentations that we've certainly had. 3 of the 4 largest house building projects appear so far to have no houses built on them at all. Whilst H4 in Dordon and Polesworth has shown 31 out of 1,675 houses on the latest figures, the last AMR report, and that 31 was passed prior to H4 being approved anyway. So in essence, on H4 we've had nothing. So I'd like everybody to sort of discuss and see what they feel about this. I can't believe that both sides of this chamber would not support the motion, because it is going to affect our communities. We have to get it right, and we have to make sure that this new law that's coming out, we are compliant with, and it doesn't. How does it affect the decisions that are already made or the plans that are already in place? Very much, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions from him?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't disagree with anything that Councillor Ridley has said, and I think it was very well put. And it's very pleasing to see a mention of different people's needs, the need for social housing, the need for housing for disabled people, and that's all very laudable. I would question, however, the impact that this motion is actually going to have on our review process. If you read the contents of the motion, it invites us to review the local plan when the government's revised guidelines are issued. The Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill is currently being read in the Lords. It will then need to go back to the Commons. It will then need to be voted upon. Once it's voted upon, there will then be consultation on the regulations before they are even issued. So what Councillor Ridley is asking us to do is to delay any review of our development plan until around about 2025. I, for one, as a representative of Aviston, do not think that that is sufficient. I completely agree that the overdevelopment of the A5 corridor needs to stop. We need to take a step back and look at that. That doesn't just affect Dordon and Polesworth, it also affects Aviston, and it also has a knock-on effect on Hartshill and the extremely dangerous junction at Woodford Lane. So I think the motion is extremely laudable, but I would like to see that review taking place and having consideration of all of those things. And a review could potentially mean more houses, and more houses for Polesworth, and more houses for Aviston, more houses for Arley, more houses for Hartshill. We need to make sure that that doesn't happen, and therefore this motion as it stands is really not sufficient and could have a negative impact. We've already heard Councillor Wright and Councillor Simpson talk about how sacrosanct the Green Belt is. Homes are needed for people and they need to be built. If they're not going to be built where our local plan currently says they're going to be built, then they will have to be built in the Green Belt. And I do not trust this administration to carry out a review of the local plan in the sort of way that Councillor Ridley and I would like to see.
Anybody else would like to comment? Councillor Parsons.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, a lot of what Councillor Ridley has said is indeed very good and very laudable. It is the lack of protection that has been referred to here that concerns me. Those of us who are sort of on the receiving end of the local plan, which I fully accept that Councillor Ridley is, we are concerned about the possibility of yet more houses. We are also concerned that the so-called protection of the local plan is already wearing thin. In the case of Birchmoor and Dordon, we have the Hodgetts development that is being pushed on next to the A5 on the one side, and then we have another development which is actually going to diminish the strategic gap, or could well do this. The protection is already beginning to look a little thin, And actually, a review without further protection could actually be considerably damaging for this area. We talk about green belt, and yes, green belt does need protection, but our green spaces are no less precious. Our green spaces are vitally important for communities, and our green spaces are simply washed away. They are of no value in terms of the local plan. They're diminished. They will be gone. And the review without additional protection could see more of that, and that is my great concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not quite sure where Councillor Taylor and Parsons are coming from. A review without further protection is coming from. I'm not sure where you're coming from. So, as we are well aware, the local plan that we adopted was adopted and built on current legislation, current numbers from the government, and it offered protection to our residents in so much as we identified the development sites and it stopped that speculative development. I agree with Councillor Ridley, the A5 improvements, but they will go hand in hand. We wanted improvements to the A5, and we were successful in getting the A5 to the top of Department of Transport's schemes, and we got that £85 million from the government to do just that. But it went hand in hand with our local plan and the development. There is a considerable cost in reviewing the local plan, some sort of £600,000, and I think it's eminently sensible, to be fair, to review when you know what the new guidelines are. If we were to start right this minute, it wouldn't offer any more protection, and we would risk having to do it again when the new guidelines are out. I think it's slightly pessimistic from Councillor Taylor to say that it would be 2025. We are constantly being bombarded from they call themselves now DUHLCG, Goves Department anyway, with the new policy, the guidelines, we've been consulted. So I think it will be a lot sooner than Councillor Taylor suggests. So, we did what we thought, and I still believe and maintain that adopting that local plan was the right thing to do, not for the council, but the right thing to do for the people of Warwickshire. It gave us that protection. It was adopted. We argued the figures, excuse me, and we got them down to as low as possible. We need growth, but absolutely, Councillor Taylor, we are passionate about protecting our green belt. 70% of this is green belt, and this administration is passionate about protecting that green belt. So I would take some issue that you can't trust us to do that. We maintain, we've said, and we deliver on that, on protecting the green belt. So I think it's fair to say we'll probably reluctantly agree because it's the right thing to do to wait for those guidelines. But we will probably support the notice of motion because it's a sensible approach.
Councillor Stewart.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I'd like to pay credit to the Dordon Independents speaking at their first ever council meeting, and I'm doing the same, and I hope you'll allow me the same kind of patience as you allow them. The first time that I came into this chamber was for the new members planning training, and it was interesting that on that evening that there were so many people here who weren't new members, and they saw fit to have an extensive discussion at that time relating to the motion that was brought to the last council meeting that was withdrawn, that was brought by the Labour Group, about the reopening of the local plan. It was very clear that there was a division on both sides of the chamber. It took quite a long time, and I actually raised that because I thought you can have the discussion when we actually debate it at council. I was told I should let it go. I'm very, very interested, therefore, to see that now that there's an indication from the Conservatives, who during their election campaign did strength and go strong on their protection of the green belt, why now they're seeking potentially to support a motion that they seem to be so vehemently against just a month ago. I do totally take on board the point, and I'm not just here as a representative of Water Orton, but as someone who is part of the much wider borough. And I think that there is a need to potentially review the whole situation as new information arises. However, I am a representative of Water Orton, and we are disproportionately affected right now by a whole range of planning and some things that haven't gone through planning in terms of developments within our village. However, despite that, and despite that we're only 2.5 years into this local plan, we are going to meet or far actually exceed by 20% the amount of houses that were allocated to us in this local plan. A review, therefore, right now makes me think, actually, we've done our part, we've taken our share of the pain, and now actually we might find that others now come back with an even agreed to share. I fail to understand, and I'm quite willing to be educated on this point, and I hope that members do take opportunity in having this wider debate, that if we reopen the local plan and we use the same principles that we have previously, why we are expecting to get anything particularly different? And indeed, why a review now would actually go and meet everyone's needs and requirements when a month ago you seem to be against it. Yeah? And I'm just hoping that for the remainder of this debate, that maybe I can get some kind of clarity that will help inform my decision-making process.
Mr. Mayor. Point of clarification, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Stewart says that we were vehemently against a review a month ago. That is purely speculative. There was a notice of motion put, or was going to be put to the council, and you can't possibly say how we were going to, but that notice of motion was withdrawn, so we weren't given the opportunity to debate. So that is a point of clarification.
Councillor Hayfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah. Why wait for the government guidelines to be updated? If the government's going to move the goalposts, you clearly need to know where the goalposts is going to be before you start doing your plan around it. It makes absolute sense to wait for that. We understand. I mean, I'm fully supportive of this notice of motion, and I understand why the emphasis at the moment is on housing allocations, because that really is a serious political issue in certain parts of the borough. But the local plan is so much more than that, and there will be an opportunity as we review it to look at broader aspects of the local plan, and others, people will have their own views on this. But for me, the green agenda, I think, is something that we need to make sure we're up to date on in terms of things like woodland plantings and things. And we've heard earlier about this sort of carpet bombing of solar panels across Forlongley and elsewhere. That is, we need to really review that, particularly in terms of any new technology that might make some of these solar panels, in fact, less efficient or be in comparison less efficient than they are at the moment. I think there's been a lot more development on neighbourhood plans that we need to make sure are fully integrated into our local plan. And I take the point that Councillor Mayor made about the community impacts, because the local plan can talk about infrastructure, and that is desperately important. But when you've got several thousand new houses built in your area, it isn't just about the infrastructure, the roads and the sewage systems and everything else. It's about that sense of community and integrating the new estates and the people of those new estates into the communities. That they've got to be part of Jordan or Bromley or wherever else. And probably there are elements of that that lay outside the local plan. We, as a council, need to be thinking about how we can encourage more community cohesion in those settlements that have seen or are likely to see increased numbers of housing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody else? Councillor Taylor?
Yes. Just want to come back onto it.
Oh, you've spoken while you're out? Yeah. Okay, sorry. Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Indeed. As I said in training the other day, I'm so pleased that people are suddenly interested in the work of the Local Development Forum. As my colleagues, Councillor Osborne, Councillor Phillips, and Councillor Simpson, we have been a subgroup who have met with very little interest until such times as people become interested in politics. And I think there's an outrageous statement being made just about trust and do not trust. So I think there's probably a need to educate some of the new members about some of the history of local plan and about some of the processes. With every local plan site allocation, we do a call for sites. It is not the administration that chooses sites, it's the landowners who put the sites forward. So any suggestion that there has been some sort of manipulation in terms of determining who would come forward with their sites for allocation is quite frankly wrong. I also remind those members that were here before the last election that we did a complete Greenbelt review. I don't believe any member of the Labour Party voted against the findings of the Greenbelt review that we undertook prior to 2019. And when we do the review this time, we will do the Greenbelt again. And hopefully we will have government legislation which will give us better guidance and better direction about how to protect areas with Greenbelt. And as we all know, Greenbelt's purpose is to prevent urban sprawl. In terms of green space and ecology, I'm interested to hear Councillor Parsons' comments. There are very clear policies within the local about Greenbelt, green space, ecology, open spaces, public spaces. So it's great to hear that people are reading the plan and they're understanding it. In terms of the strategic gap, yes, definitely. I don't think there's anybody in this chamber who wouldn't agree with the value of the strategic gap and isn't dismayed by what has happened over recent times. Left-hand side as you leave the A5 and the development down there, which is totally against anything anybody in this chamber would have ever wished for. I think in terms of the local plan, I don't see it as a living document. You all know that we bring to this chamber additions to it. You all know that the work of the Local Development Forum is about reviewing all of the policies. So to treat the local plan as a dead document that is sealed, signed and not improved is a mistake. It certainly is a document that can be improved and enhanced. It certainly is a document that is a material planning consideration. So you have strong views, don't just talk about them in full council. I'm going to repeat Councillor Simpson here. Come to the meeting and add to the value of the debate and add to the value of the decisions. This forum is to talk about the local plan. It is a highly complex document. It is a document we all know takes years to produce. We're about to start looking at the next employment strategy. When I last talked to our lead officer about the employment strategy, if it was to be done properly, it would take 7 years to do. So it would extend beyond the administrations of this council. So let's be realistic about what we're talking about. Let's also remember very good advice that was given by the head of development control about doing away. There are 9,500 housing sites allocated in the local plan. You cannot make them unallocated. If you want to come up with new sites, let's be really clear. Those new sites will be in addition to the existing sites. So if you are concerned about development within your community, then all I would say to you is with the current local, know where notionally allocated. If you want to take the gloves off and include new sites, please do bring it forward. Please do be clear with your local parish councils when they do neighbourhood plans about where you want more development. Because effectively, that's the argument that's going on here. So I welcome the interest. I welcome with open arms anybody that wants to come and join us on the LDF. And I note that there are some members from the Labour Party who are Councillor Taylor, Osborne, who are here as the group representatives. So very much look forward to working with everybody going forward. Local plan, how interesting. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody else want to join who hasn't spoken? Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe it's a sign of my, I always try and approach the start of a new council term with optimism and a feeling that we can try and achieve something. I'm not sure I think that anymore, to be honest. It's the first time I've been disabused of my trust so quickly. It's worth everyone trying to remember. The Borough Plan was adopted the longest period of public consultation in this council's history. More people were asked and had their say in the Borough Plan than any other document this council has ever introduced. All of a sudden, some people think they're more important than all of that consultation. It doesn't matter because they don't trust it. Really? You don't trust the people who are saying it? You don't trust the decisions that were made? The housing development in the plan is intended to last for the life of the plan. It will not happen in year one. All the good things and all the bad things happen overnight. Sometimes we all like to make decisions quickly. But for better or for worse, planning isn't like that. It's an iterative process that people are saying that people are consulted on. And, I do get concerned, Councillor, talk about the protection looking thin. To an extent, everything is thin. It's as thick or as thin as the members in this chamber make it. Councillor Chambers, you are a member of the planning board. You turn up absolutely, diligently. You are engaged. You come to the meetings we have on Friday, talk to developers. If anybody here needs more opportunity to bolster those decisions, to protect that protection, it's every one of you. You all have that opportunity. Don't please let's set hairs running to scare people just to make a few. Plan is an iterative process. Everyone has the opportunity to contribute. Everyone here had the opportunity to contribute to the plan when it's going through its lengthy process of consultation. Got something 30 groups dreamt up overnight and pushed through one quick meeting. Cost £500,000. A significant amount of people's money was spent on delivering the Borough Plan, going through the entirety of all of it. It's not a perfect document. No document is perfect. Planning, believe me, after 30 years involved in planning, I know full well planning is not. So to all of us to make the decisions and the knowledge of everything we can find, to make it as close to half perfection as we possibly can. If I look at it now, there are a significant number of things might do differently. The need for high dependency units. We have no policy on high dependency units, yet we know increasingly that is more. There are areas without a doubt that we would change. No, when I was listening to the debate, it made me challenge my own memory. And I had to look up what is the definition of review. It's a formal assessment of something with the intention of instituting change if necessary. But to my mind, Mr. Mayor, that implies not going in with a preconceived notion of what you think it will end up with. You're going to honestly look at it and consider it. I think that's what Councillor Ridley was talking about. Not going in there with a huge long list of this must happen or I don't trust you. Councillor Taylor, I've never met you before. Not once. No, I haven't. And yet tonight, you had the nerve to sit there and say, you don't trust me. Shame on you. I have done my level best as chairman of planning to be open and to involve everybody in the planning process. Be as engaged as we. Tonight you said you didn't trust the administration to undertake the review the way that you wish it to happen. Don't ask me or anybody else how that might happen. How can you possibly mistrust someone you've never spoken to and you've never asked the question? I just don't understand that. Yeah, what I say, Mr. May, if we're going to have a review, and let's have a review, let's see where it goes. But let's enter into it in the spirit of collaboration, where we try and do the best for the people who live here, rather than score a few political points.
Councillor Taylor, have you a point of order?
Yes, I think I have a right to clarify points because I was mentioned by name by Councillor Simpson. Councillor Simpson may not be meeting me before, but I had a very constructive working relationship with him whilst I was the chair of the North Warwickshire Citizens Advice Bureau. I've had a very constructive working relationship with Councillor Riley also. If I said something which offended either of the gentlemen, then I am very sorry, because I feel that I could work with both of them and this council in a very constructive way to move forward on the local plan and the development plan for the benefit of all of our residents. I think what I was trying to say was that the development plan is there. I don't want to see it as a dead document like Councillor Riley. I want to continually review it, and policies are coming forward all of the time. I think I've had a document about this thick to read about the scoping and sustainability review, which I haven't yet had the time to consider. These are things which are being considered all of the time. I think my main point was to say that I do not consider waiting until the government has published its guidelines is the best way to proceed. And I think what I was saying was I don't trust a review at this point not to have an adverse impact on the people that I represent.
Okay, you've made your point.
So thank you for allowing me to clarify, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Phillips.
Mr. Mayor, can I?
Oh, Councillor Simpson, sorry.
And it's on the same point. So apologies if I got that wrong. I am genuinely sorry. I didn't intend to, and I accept unreservedly what you said. And I genuinely look forward to working.
Councillor Phillips.
No one on the Labour Party has said that we are dismissing the work of anybody at council and anybody in the public that had a consultation with council. And maybe Councillor Simpson will clarify that as well.
Councillor Simpson.
Sure, there is a need to clarify, Mr. Mayor. Simply saying the largest piece of consultation we've ever undertaken, and you turn it over at your panel. Stand by that.
Anybody else? Councillor Gosling.
Thank you. Thank you. While we are, I think firstly, we obviously have any review and in order to do better, we have consistently said that we do not support this effect size. We do now obviously have the reservations, as we expressed last time, that any review that comes forward from the administration that still supports and still recommends this plan as the best thing will be fair. And there is a significant risk that it could be detrimental. We still have concerns that our open spaces are not treated in zone protection. So Dordon, Holsworth, Parks Hill and Common, those green spaces are significantly important because they're on the wrong side of a line. They do not get the same protection. That is always one of our concerns when looking at the local plan, and we fully sympathise. I would also go back to the history lesson that we just received, which was very informative. But at the end of the day, based on that consultation, based on those sites, there were preferred options put forward in the options section of the local plan, and this council, this administration, most of you who are still here, chose the site allocations which are presented before. There were other options which we have consistently argued for, which we have consistently said needed to be looked at again, and we needed to look at the other options. There were other preferred options in that plan. This was the only option from the original options document which was brought forward. Just clarify now, or shall I finish first?
Please finish. I'd like to raise a point of clarification about other options.
In the options document, there's 4 options.
Are you going to finish?
Okay,
Finish what you're saying.
okay, thank you. So we obviously would welcome and have fought long and hard for a review to the site allocations. We are not the only council in this position. There are 55 councils at the moment which have thrown out their housing targets. They have said no. The government algorithm is wrong. We are repealing it. Basildon has thrown out its entire local plan and are rewriting it because they disagree and recognise the harm that has been done to their communities by trying to meet artificial targets. We have already been told in LDF by our officers that we took more houses than necessary in order to deliver on a major infrastructure project, which is the A5. Those are the facts that we are building this plan on. And the A5 itself, now under threat, calls into question the deliverability again of this plan. We also have deliverability issues moving forward with delivering 775 houses a year for 20 years. The local plan, we have always argued, is unsustainable, not deliverable and unfair on specific areas of our community. We would support a review which we believed had a positive outcome for our relatives, shared that for the housing needs and met the housing needs of our residents. However, we still feel that this one doesn't. We are obviously in disagreement about it. We have been from the start, and I'm sorry that we didn't transform our opinions drastically over an election and come to a different point of view that would have filled Councillor Simpson with optimism. But these are the facts, and it remains the fact. We feel this local plan that was presented and was passed is damaging to our community. We still hold that. We do not feel confident that any local plan which is born on those grounds could ever serve the communities which are.
Thank you. Councillor Riley, would you like to clarify?
Can I just make a comment about the alternate option sites? So I am immediately drawn to mind about the alternate proposal for a housing site at the Belfry. 4,500 houses on land by the landowner for development. So the key alternative development site that came forward, these proposals, was suggested to be built on land that the developer didn't want to develop. Well, the local plan is not a compulsory purchase document. If the landowner does not offer their land, then it cannot be developed. So any suggestion that there were major alternative sites doesn't fit my recollection. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Anybody else before I ask? Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I mean, I'm really interested in debate, and I wasn't around previously, so I've kind of got no history with previous plan, etc. I just wanted to pick up on a point that was made about the sites, and it seems to me, listening to this debate, it's this side of the line, it's over here, it's along the A5, therefore we're being unfairly kind of developed, as it were. All I'd ask is, if you think along the A5 being unfairly developed, come across to the west of the borough, have a look at the decimation that our communities are going through with HS2, and Councillor Stewart raised it in Water Alton. Now, the development on the west of the borough is staggering. So I think we're in a really difficult position as a borough, in that it's being developed everywhere. So there isn't kind of one area that's worse than others. It's everywhere. Thank you.
Could I clarify a point on that, please?
Yeah,
Thank
briefly.
you. Yeah, it will be brief. Just to clarify, we have always, with unanimously across the chamber, object. It's not something in our control. It is not an issue to be discussed under the limit.
Right, Councillor Ridley, before we enter that, I'll respond.
Just very quickly. I'm really grateful for the interaction and response I've had from everybody. It is a very, very passionate subject, obviously. It affects Dordon and Poleswood very much, and it's been part of my life for the last 5 or 6 years, I have to say, and I've aged. In summary, I've heard everybody and taken everybody to heart. Thank you very much. But this states, obviously, the Chamber states that North Warwickshire local plan, we've got to take 9,598. I keep saying 9,598, but the rules are about to change. It's a levelling up generation bill that's going to come out. And we owe it to Dordon that are going to be affected by these
these massive change in houses, is to look at it correctly and operate within the law when this new law comes out. Because we are a rural, and when our green spaces are built on, they're going back, and that's it. We haven't got the benefit of any green space, any protected green land our side of the A5. So we are impassioned that we will. The motion of the review is not a shock to the council. In his concluding comments on the examination, which is page 62, for those wishing to follow this argument, it's what I read last night. The Inspector Tom Bristow shows concern for the stepped trajectory required to meet the housing delivery targets. From 2016 to 2023, North Warwickshire developers, we should be building 265 new homes every year. Next year, it steps up to 390 homes per year. Mr. Bristow states in his report, and I quote, "Nevertheless, paragraph 1.8 of the local plan includes a commitment to an early review." This council had a duty to cooperate with a number of neighbouring authorities, and as that took a number of housing needs, which forms part of that 9,598. And as a rough figure, that's almost a third of the North Warwickshire housing allocations that we're about to get. The examining inspector in his final report stated that a duty to cooperate did not necessarily mean a duty to agree, but that agreement took place. And I hear what Councillor Riley said about the fact that we've got it, and there is a risk that we may get more. The Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill, currently awaiting royal assent, I'm not so pessimistic that it's going to take so long. Abolishes this duty to cooperate and instead introduces a simplified alignment test for cross-boundary planning. So, are we absolutely sure we will need to supply housing numbers in that quantity? Hear what you say. Can we look at it? Is there a possibility that we can that there's other implications that have happened in the time that we had our core strategy in 2014? Have things changed, and will the LURB affect those decisions? I stand here for the people of Dordon because I'm their voice, and it has been, I know that we had a big consultation, but there was 2,000 people responded from Dordon and Polesworth in that consultation. That's a lot of people. And a lot of them were very concerned about the amount of housing that the two villages were going to receive. You stand for your own residents, and you're all impassioned, and you're all here because you're committed and you want to do the right things for the people that you represent. And I respect that very much. But I want us to get this right for the people of North Warwickshire, and to make sure we are compliant with the new laws when they come in, have all the current information to hand so that we can actively address the homes for young people, people with disabilities, custom-built things. That's got to be looked at. But I urge you to support my motion because it is heartfelt and it is genuine. The fact that as soon as we can, as soon as this law comes out, we do need to review as a matter of urgency. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. So now we'll move to the vote. All those in favour of the motion? 2, 3. Those against? Abstentions?
So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 13. Motion is carried.
The motion is carried. Thank you very much. And moving on to item 14, which is the exclusion of the public and press. Consider in accordance with section 100A bracket 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, where it is in the public interest that the public and press be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business, on the grounds that they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information.
Sorry to draw your attention.
I thought it was doing so well then. So moving on to item 13, to authorise the Chief Executive in accordance with Article 7.05 of the Articles of Constitution to sign and seal on behalf of the council any orders, deeds and documents necessary to give effect of any resolution of the council, including any passed during part of the meeting which is held in private. Seconded.
Second.
I think it's voted. Yeah. All those in favour? Thank you. That's passed. Thank you. Councillor Simpson, item 14.
Oh, I'll propose it.
And 100% on the grounds that they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined by Schedule 12A of Act. All those in favour?